Hello there, this is James Scrofty, Jez 1978, and around a month ago now, having helped a friend of mine here on the internet to reach out to someone who was suicidal, he recommended that I make this video sharing my advice with everyone. So then, here it is. A how-to guide, although I genuinely despise that term, passing on everything that I know about how to approach and reach out to someone who you believe may be suicidal. After all, having made so many videos asking everyone to reach out to those who are in pain, it's vitally important that we know how to reach out to them when they are thinking about taking their own lives, because no matter how well-intentioned we may be, the wrong words or the wrong attitude could shut them down or drive them away completely, leaving you with no opportunity to help them. Before I begin, though, I just want to emphasize that an ounce of prevention is worth a ton of cure. That, as I will explain at the end of this video, reaching out to someone who is contemplating suicide is a massive commitment that cannot be taken lightly. So, wherever possible, you must try to reach out to people before the depression and the hopelessness takes hold, to show them that they are not alone or powerless, to support them and to help them find hope, instead of ignoring their pain or telling yourselves that they'll get over it eventually. However, if it's already gone beyond that, if the person in question is showing signs of being suicidal, not only the obvious signs such as stockpiling pills or asking what's the point, but also if they've been depressed and miserable for a very long time, yet suddenly seem content because they know that their pain will be over soon, or have become reckless and irresponsible, literally not caring if they have a fatal accident, then the same advice applies to everyone, regardless of whether they're your best friend in real life or a total stranger who has made a video on the internet asking for help, because no matter what your relationship with them may be, the emotions are always the same. So then, how do you reach out to a suicidal person? First of all, the most important thing to remember is that you are not there to tell them anything. You are not attempting to persuade them or convince them of anything either. On the contrary, you must allow them to control the conversation. You are reaching out a hand, and they are the ones who must decide whether or not they wish to take it. Indeed, the two most common reasons why people choose to commit suicide are feelings of guilt and feelings of powerlessness, no matter how they may manifest themselves. They feel helpless and alone, that life is futile because they are not in control, and nothing they do can ever alter their situation or relieve their pain. They feel guilty and ashamed because whether they are actually responsible or not, they blame themselves for the suffering of other people. So bearing all of this in mind, how does it help them to burst in acting like a disgruntled parent, telling them what to do, telling them how they should feel, and saying that if they ever take their own lives, then they are selfish cowards who will inflict terrible grief and suffering upon their loved ones? The answer is that it doesn't. Instead, you are heaping yet more guilt upon them while stripping them of what little power they believe they have left. And in fact, no matter how you may feel about this personally, the reality is that many suicidal people believe that taking the decision to commit suicide is empowering, that when all other hope and self-determination has been stripped away from them, the certainty that they can choose to end their own suffering at any time is all that they have left. Even though many don't actually go through with it, the fact that they can is something that they cling to in their darkest hour, a constant reminder that they are still in control over this single aspect of their lives, that they can still make this decision for themselves. So, what happens when some well-meaning but overly emotional and ignorant do-gooder denies them that decision and robs them of their last shred of self-determination? They sometimes kill themselves as a final act of defiance. Regardless of whether or not this is true in each individual case, the fact remains that your goal is to help them see that they are not powerless, that just as they can choose to take their own lives, they can choose to try and make their own lives better, and the first step is to show them that they are not alone by offering to be there for them, to listen and to care. After that, it's entirely up to them whether they choose to talk to you or not. If they do accept your offer, then they decide what they do and don't want to talk about with you, and your primary role is simply to listen. not to question, never to judge, and never, under any circumstances, to condemn. The fear, guilt, and shame that they feel, whether it's rational or not, is often the reason why they were too afraid to talk about their problems in the first place, leaving them isolated and alone in a downward spiral, too afraid to talk to anyone until suicide seemed like the only way out. So if they choose to reach out to you, the chances are that they will clam up the moments that they even suspect you disapprove of them. And even if, to you, their problems sound childish and stupid, the pain that they feel is the pain that they feel. How you would react in a similar situation, or whether you believe that other people are suffering more than they are, etc., etc., is all entirely irrelevant. Once again, how the fuck does telling people that they shouldn't get so upset over such trivial issues, or that they are whining little babies who are just looking for attention while others are genuinely suffering, help them in the slightest? Yet again, it doesn't. Instead, it only piles more guilt and self-loathing upon them, possibly driving them to take their own lives, or at the very least, making damn certain that they won't want to talk to you. So regardless of how you feel or what you may believe, it's not about you or about anyone else, how much others are suffering, how well they cope with similar problems, or what have you. Instead, you must do all that you can to remain focused on the individual person and his or her own problems and emotions, not their duties or obligations, not what others think about them, and certainly not how their loved ones will react if they die, because, as I've already explained, that will only heap more guilt upon them and make them feel even more powerless. If they believe that their problems revolve around someone else, if they are obsessed with another person or simply think that other people despise them, then try to help them understand that it is their own thoughts, their own beliefs, and their own emotions that are the actual issue, because again, they probably feel driven to suicide because they think that they have no control over their own situation. So no matter what the problem may be, helping them to understand that they can choose how to perceive it and how to deal with it will eventually help them to overcome it. And although you should try to focus on them as much as possible, if they are convinced that they are completely alone and that no one understands them, if you've had similar experiences in your life and the other person is willing to listen, then share those experiences to let them know that they are not alone, that other people have gone through similar problems and can understand at least a tiny fraction of what they are going through now. Bearing in mind everything else that I've said in this video, however, when you talk about your own experiences or someone else's experiences, please be as neutral and as matter-of-fact as possible. Do not even imply that this is the way that you should deal with it. And likewise, when you offer advice or suggestions, offer them in the form of possibilities or options, because again, your goal is to try and show them that they are not powerless, or at the very least, to do everything you can not to strip them of the last of their confidence by telling them what they should do. And finally, one reason why I said in the introduction that we must always try to reach out to people before they become suicidal is that once the depression, guilt, and hopelessness has taken hold of someone's mind, helping them to overcome it is a massive undertaking that requires incredible patience, will, and emotional fortitude. If you believe that someone is suicidal, make damn certain that you have the time, the patience, and the will to be there for them for as long as they will need you before you reach out to them. Because if they open up to you and you have to leave right in the middle of the process, it will completely undermine any good that you might otherwise have done. Don't mention time or appointments. Do not mention tiredness, thirst, or hunger. When a suicidal person is pouring out their heart and soul, you cannot simply put them on hold for 5 minutes while you go for a coffee break, or tell them that you have to leave at 6, and then expect them to stop feeling suicidal before that time. Indeed, even the fear, the suspicion that they are being a burden, or that you're not really listening to them because you're worried about something more important, will make them feel even more guilty and powerless, making them hesitant to talk to you and stopping the process in its tracks. Reaching out to a suicidal person requires 100% commitment, and stopping at any point can rob them of their final lifeline. So like in the film Jumanji, do not start unless you intend to finish. Before you reach out, ask yourself if you can truly be there for them for as long as they will need you, and if you cannot, then your best options are either to gather several people together and take turns being there for them, maintaining a 24-hour vigil, or asking them to call a suicide hotline, and the link to a website where you can find many is listed down as the underbar. But as I also said in the introduction of this video, an ounce of prevention is worth a ton of cure, and it is always better to reach out to others before they feel driven to try and take their own lives.